for you to join us. And this session is being arranged and co-partnered with AVP, an Asian Voluntary Network of Philanthropy. To start off the discussion, I would request Dr. Abid Qayyum Sulehri Saab for his opening remarks, for his welcome remarks.
Thank you, Abdullah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'll start from where I stopped with my last remarks, where we had this wonderful presentations of the four group works. Let me first of all welcome Senator Roshan Khurshid Barucha and Saeed Siddiqui Saab, Senior Joint Secretary, Economic Affairs Division of Pakistan. Senator Roshan Khurshid Barucha's presence here is a great pleasure for us, not only because she's one of my bosses. She's part of the Board of Governors of SDPI. I report to her, but she's also the head of SOS villages in Pakistan. Balochistan. She's patron of SOS villages in Balochistan, and she's a member of Supreme Judicial Council, which is a very highly empowered council that decides policy matters about Supreme Court of Pakistan and the all other courts. And we feel that her presence in that forum would provide a legal framework of what we are discussing and how it can be channelized. We also have Saeed Siddiqui Saab with us. Saeed Siddiqui Saab, a career civil servant, currently with the Economic Affairs Division, but he has a very diversified portfolios, and including, of course, his current portfolio is quite important in the context of the topic, because all INGOs and organizations like STPI, so any organization in Pakistan that receives any sort of foreign funding has to get registered with Economic Affairs Division, and that is the route to actually curb the misuse of philanthropic funds and other. As you recall that when Pakistan was placed on grey list, one of the acquisition on Pakistan was that the policy and laws they had some sort of loopholes where non-governmental organization they could receive money which could be channelized for quote unquote some illegal uses. So Saeed Siddiqui Saab's presence is relevant in that context. So both of you to just present the case what we discussed here in this room in the earlier session. There were about 50-60 representatives from all the mainstream organizations from Pakistan, and AVPN, the Asia Venture Philanthropic Network, which is a part of a wider European Venture Philanthropic Association. Tristan, please correct me if I'm factually incorrect. So AVPN is exploring the landscape of Pakistan. Of course, no commitment yet and no agenda, but AVPN is a network that can channelize the philanthropic resources for an impact. And the entry point that we are exploring here is gender empowerment. So philanthropy with the gender lens. So that is what AVPN's pursuit is. And I'm thankful to them that they chose STPI's annual conference, where we told them that everyone who matters in this field, historically, they participate here and they would be here. So this is the broader program, but of course, while they will be presenting what was discussed, what's the way forward proposed, we will like to listen from both of you, the legal framework, the policy framework, and how one can support the initiatives like AVP, and I think we need many more here, when we know that many of the foundations and trusts now, they have annual budgets for social sector development, which surpasses the annual budgets of many developing countries. So that perhaps is a neglected component in case of Pakistan, where we keep on looking towards IMF and World Bank and ADB and other conventional sources of lending or conventional sources of borrowing or support, while neglecting the big foundation. And to me, it's a very welcome initiative and that's why we wholeheartedly are trying to support AVPN's mission here, so that one would very much like to see their functional office in Pakistan, where they can engage with our philanthropic there's segments of society and can actually divert it for an impact. So I'll stop here and back to you, Abdullah.
Thank you very much for your welcome remarks. Before I move on to the special remarks of Secretary Saab, I would like to introduce the other speakers who will be part of the panel. We are thankful to Senator Roshan Khurshid Balucha Sahiba. We are joined by Ms. Kamla Marvi, who is Director for Pakistan at the British Asian Trust. Thank you for joining, ma'am. We're joined by Ms. Uzma Mansoor, who is the Joint Director at State Bank of Pakistan. And lastly, we are joined by Syed Saim Ali Saab, who is the Chief Economist at the Bank of Punjab. So, sir, I'll request, I'll move forward.
Because Syed Saab was not there in the previous session, and I hope Syed Saab, you are here till lunch. So if you let the speakers and Christine speak, and afterward he can give you his opinion.
Sure.
I think because he didn't attend the previous session, so he can give you a very orthodox comment, but I know he's not the conventional bureaucrat.
Sir, so, well noted.
Working with him for last many years and knowing him, perhaps you can make the best use of his time and his presence here. If
well noted.
And all of you can make the points that you want to raise, and then let him give his thoughts and let him guide you how EAD and APP and they can work together.
Well noted. Then just from here, then I'll request Tristan, the Chief Engagement Officer, to start off with the moderated discussion.
Okay, well, thank you. And that's a great idea. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. And we look forward to hearing your remarks once you've had a chance to hear the conversation this afternoon. So once again, welcome to this afternoon's session. My name is Tristan Nace. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer at AVPN. I think most of you were in the session before lunch, but for those of you who weren't here, AVPN is Asia's largest network of social investors. And by social investor, we really look across the spectrum of capital providers who are deploying capital to achieve a variety of impact goals, both social and environmental. We have about 600 member organizations. Some, of course, are in this room this afternoon. But our members sit across the spectrum of capital, from philanthropists to impact funds, family offices, corporate foundations, and including the traditional development finance institutions that Dr. Abid referenced in his opening remarks. And indeed, one of the things that we're really trying to do is mobilize private philanthropy and to complement the existing multilateral development architecture, and in some cases think about what comes next after that, as we strengthen the private philanthropic ecosystems across the Asia-Pacific region. We operate in about 33 markets, from Tokyo to Australia to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and we're delighted this year to be really launching our work much more intentionally here in Pakistan. And we've made a commitment with a new team that we've hired recently here, and our colleagues are in the room. I'll just ask them to point themselves out. They can wave. And please do make sure that you get a chance to speak to our team here in Pakistan this afternoon as well. Okay, so this afternoon's session, we're really here to sort of explore the philanthropic or social investment landscape here in Pakistan. And we have four really esteemed speakers and leaders within the sector to help us with their insights into the sector as it's evolving here in Pakistan. Across the region, we're seeing a real explosion and growth in philanthropy and in innovations, particularly in how we give and how we can invest to achieve impact. I talked about some of those trends before lunch, but just briefly, we're seeing a real focus on collaboration and how philanthropies can collaborate both with each other, but also with governments in support of national and regional objectives, particularly around issues around how we achieve energy transition, issues that don't affect one country, but affect many countries and can only really be addressed collectively. We're also seeing a big focus on the role that philanthropic capital can play in driving innovation in new sectors around technology, around climate, around agriculture, around food security. So key issues that we face in the region, and that intersection between climate and everything else is becoming increasingly apparent, and something that we'll be talking a lot about next week in Baku at COP29 as well. We're seeing a big focus on the need to ensure that we put SDG 5, gender equality, at the forefront of all of our thinking, regardless of what the issue might be. So gender equality is a key focus of the AVPN platform as well. And then finally, we also talk about this new generation of philanthropists that we're seeing as generation gets handed from one generation to the next. We're seeing a shift in the way that these new leaders are thinking about the type of change that they want to make. So these are some of the things that we're seeing across the region, and we're really excited to explore how those themes, how those trends are being manifested here in Pakistan as well. So perhaps, Senator Roshan, I can start with you, if I may, with our first question, which is really an opening question to explore what you're seeing here in Pakistan, how these trends are resonating with you, and what are some of the key priority areas that you're focusing on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Coming from Balochistan, I'll speak more for Balochistan because I'm a grassroots worker at Balochistan, less of a senator, more of a social worker, frankly speaking, and have been working at the grassroots level. When I see to Balochistan, especially I'm talking of the interior of Balochistan, not Quetta, but interior. So what I see, we have been talking since last 2-3 days on SDGs. The first one was poverty, what we talked about, and then we talk about zero hunger. I believe in that. Nobody in Pakistan goes hungry. At least they get one chapati to eat. So there I would say, nobody goes hungry. But like you were talking of gender equality, we are talking of good health, we are talking of education. And when we are talking of water, sanitation, and all these things, what I see in interior of Balochistan, we are lacking in everything, frankly speaking. And then COVID-19 brought us much back. 2020 to 2023, we were down. And then came the flood, which affected us a lot in Balochistan. Lot had to be done, I do agree, but looking at the people over there, I don't think that we've done much about it, especially when we talk about all those, we talk about affordable and clean energy. And now when climate change is there, now I would say not only climate change, but climate shift is also there when you see the climate. So both things are there. So that is affecting our people of Balochistan a lot. Interior Sindh also, I would say, not only Balochistan, but interior of Sindh, interior of Balochistan. And I feel now it's time for us that action should be louder than word. When we talk of leaving no one behind, when we are saying that, so when we say that, I think we should think about it, how to go forward. Well, my idea, what I would think is, we should make our local government strong. We have to do something in the local government because these are the people who are going to look after the people at the grassroots level and not people at the higher forum. Devolve them, make them strong, financially also strong, because they're not financially strong. Unless they're not financially strong, we cannot do anything. Secondly, I would say, tax, rebate in tax, give them incentive, give them something. Our women are very good where embroidery, our own cultural things are, they're very good, but there is no market for them because they have never come out. So looking at that, and when you start a small business, because I've been with Technical Training Center also for a very long time with GIZ, I felt that that's the very way out for them to do their earnings. So second, I would say initiative in giving tax rebate, that is also very important to encourage them. And thirdly, where we talk of women, I think I do agree Benazir support program is a very good program, but just dishing out money like that, I think training is more important. Because when we dish out money, that means we are making them beggars. They become lazy, they don't want to do anything because they're getting monthly money. They should be trained. Once they are trained, then only they should get money and they should start earning their own. Unless they don't do that, we cannot go forward. We have to make them self-sufficient. We have to make them learn how to earn and not just give out money. That is how. Because see, in Balochistan, what is happening in the rural area, everybody is shifting towards the city. Rural, because there are no factories except for Winder or places like that. In Balochistan, there's only livestock or agriculture. And with this climate change, if you see to it, and there are a lot of changes over there in agriculture even. In all part of Balochistan, the women don't come and do agriculture or livestock, very few. That is on the border of Sindh area. Otherwise, like other areas, they don't. So the women are not working, but they're very good in their other embroidery and all. So frankly speaking, when I see these people, I really feel what to talk of other thing. I'd gone to one place in Balochistan interior, that is Muslim Bagh. Till today, they don't have good, clean drinking water. Can you believe it? And when I went there, one of the little boy told me, I was surprised when he said, and it was true when he told me, in Urdu, he said, Kya aap apna Angrezi pani nahi lai? You didn't bring your English water. He meant Nestle. I said, no, I will drink the water what you all will drink. He said, okay, then come with me. I'll show you what we are going to drink. So I went along. I saw there was just a puddle of water. He took the water out. And you will not believe it, they drink such water. So when we talk, I think we have to look seriously. The government has to be very serious on this and look at it very seriously. Like I told you, we have to implement things. We have to practice things. We keep on saying policies, laws, everything. Policies are there, laws are there, rules are there, but who is going to implement? Actually, I personally feel implementation and grassroots, that is very, very important. And we must look into it. Then only we can progress. Otherwise, we cannot. And I agree, believe with Nafisa Shah, who was there yesterday and was talking about the local government, which I feel is very important. When we used to have councillors and all, they used to minority look at small, because it was their area. At least they used to look at proper roads are there, things are properly, schools, education. If you look at education, you'll be surprised there's such a lot of dropouts. Why? Because of poverty. People don't go to school. So if you look at education level, even you look at health. Yes, now in Balochistan, since we have these BHUs working, and we have now got doctors going there, especially for women, that's a good thing. Good things are there. I wouldn't say there's everything, but I feel we still need a lot of help. And I'm sure there will come a day when we'll be more successful. But my aim, 3 points I said, we have to strengthen the women equality, gender equality, we should believe in, initiative of giving tax rebate, and local government should be strong. That's my main. Thank you.
Okay,
And
thank
any
you.
question afterwards, I would like to.
I'm sure we can go into much more detail around those recommendations, but I think that the things that come out strongly for me is the real importance of local governance and strengthening the ability for local governments to be able to implement on the ground to address this implementation gap that we see between policy or that we see between the aims and objectives that we have and the need to actually implement on the ground as well. You also highlighted the importance of government in the context of tax incentives. And there, I think philanthropy can also play a really important role through providing guarantees and providing support to encourage banks and financial institutions to lend to micro enterprises as well in order to really stimulate economic development. And then you also highlighted this challenge around urban versus rural development and the need to think about how we can also empower rural communities as well. So thank you for that intervention. We'll come back to you later, but I'm going to move now to Kamala Marvi. From your perspective with the British Asian Trust, working with diaspora communities, what are you seeing in terms of the trends and opportunities for philanthropy to grow here in Pakistan?
Thank you, Tristan. And thank you also for inviting me to such an esteemed panel. I'm really honored to be sitting amongst this group. Okay, so I think just a very quick introduction to British Asian Trust. Like Tristan said, we are a diaspora-led organization. So we're based in the UK and we work essentially in South Asia. So we work in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, a little bit in Sri Lanka as well. So we have a very strong focus on South Asia and South Asian problems and trying to solve and create impact in South Asia. In Pakistan, we all know that, and we've said it repeatedly since morning, that there is a lot of philanthropic work going on. But Tristan, when you introduced the different types of philanthropy, it really was, for me, it made me think and realize where some of the issues with philanthropy lie. You said that there are multiple types of philanthropy and there's almost a range. And you said that sort of the simple range is this sort of charitable giving, where you don't even know what's going on and you're just giving the money and you don't really ask what happens with that money. And then there's a whole spectrum, which is philanthropy, and then into more strategic approaches to giving. So you not only give money, but you also ask for more complex results and so on. And that is where we need to go. I think in Pakistan, we're very much still in that first level of charitable giving. And that comes partly from our culture. We believe that we should give and not see where that is going, which we should, allow for people who need it to get it. And zakat, etc., therefore, is a very equitable way of giving because it goes to those who are the most needy. So it is good, but sometimes we lose the strategic type of investing in that process. So I think in Pakistan, there is a real need to have some shift where our capital drives more strategic impact. I'm going to answer your question, which I interpret as how can philanthropy ensure impact and good solutions, right? So I'm going to answer that using 3 approaches that are important to British Asian Trust in our work. The first one, which those who know us know that this is very much a mantra for us, which is that we have to have an outcomes focus. Too often, we invest in activities, in projects, without really defining the outcome of interest. And I'm going to give you an example. Do we pay for improved math scores, or do we pay for new buildings, teacher training, new textbooks? What are we paying for? We tend to pay for buildings, books, teacher training. We don't pay for, when we're a philanthropist, we don't pay for improved math scores because we actually don't understand how to cost it, how to pay for it, how do you make this happen, right? So we just assume that the teacher training, the textbooks, etc., will lead to improved math scores. right? So in BAT, a lot of our work is that we really try and focus on how to define outcomes, how to measure them, and how to understand how to cost them. Like, how do you cost improved math scores? I can easily cost you a teacher training, 30 teachers, room full of people, little bit of snacks, train up, so on. But so how do you cost it? And but I think the what can result from having an outcome focus is much stronger capacity to deliver on what the country requires. And it allows, if I am challenging a service provider that you're going to give me improved math scores, it allows the service provider to have a lot more flexibility. So if improved textbooks aren't working, then tomorrow they can try and train the teacher. And if the teacher is not getting, if that's not working, they can try something else. So it gives a lot of flexibility to innovate. It can be very context driven. So in this area, teacher training is the issue, somewhere else, something else is the issue. And it is driven by evidence and learning, and it really forces service providers to start thinking in that way. So I think for us, one key area of focus for British Asian Trust is an outcomes focus and outcome-based financing. Second piece that I would like to talk about, which for us in our approach is really important, is solving for scale and sustainability. You can't solve for scale and sustainability in your first year of work or in a 2-year project. You can't. But if you go in with a long-term vision and you say that this is where I'm going and this is the pathway that will take me there, and then maybe start at the beginning of that pathway, but have that long-term vision, have a sight of the fact that we're trying to solve solutions for 250 million people, right? So our solutions have to be cost effective. They have to be scalable. They have to be things that really can solve the country's problems. So go in from the start with a longer term vision, identify the pathways and learn along the way, and of course course correct as you go along, but go in with that longer term vision. The third piece, which for us is very important, and again, everybody has spoken about it, so I don't think I'm saying anything new, is the collaborative approach. We can't do it alone. Let's not be silos in our work. Let's not think that we are the best at everything. We're not. Everybody else knows much more, has lots of experiences. And to give you an example of one piece of work that we have done together with others is the work that we do in mental health in British Asian Trust. And what we have done, and this is not a project, actually we don't have any money to do this, we do it just because this is a belief for us. We bring together, along with others, almost 100 organizations working in mental health. We sit together, we try and solve solutions together, we try and build things like quality standards together, we advocate together, not BAT, but others have advocated for decriminalization of suicide, and that's only happened because there was a joint voice, a collaborative voice that made things happen. So don't do things alone, don't think we're the best at everything, we're not. It's the power of many and the power of collaboration that really helps us get there. And similarly, BATs, we have a culture where we sit with everybody. We sit with the government, we sit with private sector, we sit with NGOs, we sit with service providers, we sit with everybody. We welcome everybody to the table. We want to work with everybody because everybody has a focus on and the ability to add to the solutions and the problems. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I think you heard 3 of the tenets really of strategic philanthropy there. The first around the outcomes focus, looking at how you solve the systems level problem that we're trying to address, and not being worried about how the organization achieves that, but being more focused on really empowering organizations to innovate and to be flexible in the way that they can use resources to most effectively achieve their goals. Secondly, you talked about the importance of scale and sustainability. So how we can ensure that we're thinking about the long-term effectiveness of all the programs that we initiate. And finally, the collaboration. And I think in addition to the importance of collaboration when it comes to pooling capital, what you highlighted there was the importance of collaboration when it comes to voice and influence and advocacy in terms of some of these critically important issues that we're trying to move, whether it's norms and social norms, or whether it's actual policies as well. So really interesting reflections there on how strategic philanthropy can be utilized to really maximize and enhance impact. Perhaps I can move on to Ms. Usma Mazur, who's a Joint Director of the State Bank of Pakistan, now for your reflections on what you're seeing. And coming from a banking or financial institution, I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on the role of philanthropy vis-a-vis financial institutions in really addressing some of these major challenges that we're seeing.
First, I would like to thank SDPI for arranging this program and AVPN for this so that we're here to talk about something that we don't talk about quite often. There was time when we started talking about SDGs, and once we started mapping the activities that we do with the SDGs, we saw that there were a lot of things that we were already doing, but we were not mapping them against the SDGs. Now, when we are talking about strategic philanthropy, basically there are a lot of things that we are already doing, but we were not, for now, we were not actually mapping it against, like strategic philanthropy was not something that we talked about. So when I got this invitation for this program, I was like, we are doing a lot of things. And basically, we are providing an enabling environment, enabling financial ecosystem so that collaborative philanthropy can be made possible. So when I speak of, within the mandate of a state bank, I would put 3 points here. Given in our mandate as a central bank, we are contributing in 3 ways to this cause. One being the policy environment, the second being building capacity in terms of financial literacy of the people that we're talking about, and the third of how we are empowering people in terms of financing to meet their financing needs. Starting from what we actually believe in, the strategic direction that we are up to, we have made 3 components, 3 items as the strategic contributions and the cross-cutting themes for the strategic plan, the strategic vision that we have for 2028. Number 1, it's climate change. 2, it's diversity and inclusion. 3rd, it's technology and innovation. There are the 3 things that we are basically talking about when we speak of strategic philanthropy and collaborative efforts in achieving philanthropy. First, I'll talk about the policy environment through which we are empowering the system. Let's start from National Financial Inclusion Strategy. That was first, it's a national level document. It was first issued in 2015. Then the second came out in 2019. And the next one is going to be out shortly, which is actually an action plan where all the activities of various players and those representing various ministries and government departments. Basically, it's a national level document which states the action plan, which kind of collaborations and what efforts and what actions are needed to attain certain level of financial inclusion within the country. Because when the people are empowered financially, only then there could be collaboration with the communities, with the people, the local government. Empowerment is very important. So after the National Financial national financial inclusion strategy, I would like to discuss what we have done to promote sustainable financing. How are we empowering charitable capital providers to make use of the enabling environment that can assist them in financing sustainable activities. So we have in 2017 we issued a green banking guidelines for the banking industry to make them resilient against the kind of challenges, the kind of climate related and the kind of socioeconomic challenges that we are facing. So in 2017, when we brought in these guidelines, which are not mandatory for now, we are just preparing the market for this big change. So it was introduced in 2017 with three major components in it, where we asked the financial industry to integrate environment and social risk into their credit policies, basically bringing their understanding to the point that environment and social risk actually exist and how they're hitting in the financial system, to bring them on board and to make them realize how important it is for a stable financial system to have environment and social risk integrated into their credit policies. Then the second aspect of these green banking policies was to scale up finance, green finance precisely. The third one, to be able to reduce the carbon footprint that they are having through their branch network and through their own banking operations. So after 2017, unfortunately, there wasn't much of a progress in the industry that we saw. And there was kind of feedback from the industry that they need more help and more capacity to actually implement the kind of expectations that green banking guidelines basically asks for. So in 2022, we brought in this environment social risk management framework, where we provided a very objective based kind of a toolkit and a checklist, where it provided the kind of help and the hand holding that was needed for the banking industry to move forward with actually assessing the risks involved in environment and social risks. So in 2022, we brought in the ESRM manual. Though the guidelines are voluntary, and we gave 3 years, that is going to end in November next year. So, but for now, we are focusing a lot on capacity building, and we are very closely monitoring the performance of the industry. And we are seeing very good results as far. Almost all the banks have their policies, environment and social risk policies in there. There are certain issues in implementation. We are closely monitoring and helping the industry to come up to the level of some standard. They all have their green banking officers as per the directions, well structured in their the level of reporting to the board, and so that the whole framework is there, and we are closely monitoring it. And till November next year, we are expecting that since they are quarterly reporting the progress, and we are closely monitoring it, we are expecting that by next year we'll be getting some very good results as far the implementation of ESRM manual is concerned. Moving forward, we spoke about how important it is to empower women here. When half of your population is women, and more importantly, they have the kind of potential that is needed to bring in change. And in this area, when we speak of sustainability, women have a great role to play internationally and locally as well. So in 2021, State Bank of Pakistan issued Banking on Equality policy. That is one of the pioneering policies in Pakistan, and it basically gave it served as a blueprint for other organizations to follow. That was back in 2020, 2021 when this policy came out. And after that, a number of gender equality based policies have come out, both within the private sector as well as the national level. So basically, this is one of the pioneering policies that a state bank brought in, where the policy requires the banks to have women staff, to have women, to have gender diversity at the branch network level, at all the dealing levels, so that the women who are reluctant to access banks can, easily approach, basically connecting with women easily, maybe. Even the women were provided gender sensitization training and how to interact with women who are, reluctant getting into the branch and getting the financial services catered to. So that was there. Then we emphasized the importance of gender disaggregated data. This policy brought in this. So there were a lot of interventions in the banking on equality policy, and it really made a lot of difference if we see the success of this policy. Then now, if I speak of impact investing or opportunities available for those who want to invest in sustainable aspect, at the moment we are working in collaboration with World Bank. We are developing a green taxonomy for Pakistan, where the economic activities will be defined in a manner that in the context of Pakistan, what stands green and what does not stand green, and where there is room for transitioning from non-green towards green. And this is the kind of document that's very technical, and it is in collaboration with World Bank, and 27 stakeholders from across Pakistan are there, with the Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination being co-lead with us, with State Bank. For now, the first draft of the document has been reviewed by all the stakeholders, and we are planning that in December first week, we'll be having a second round of the mission from World Bank, where we will hopefully be, we'll be having some technical discussions with the stakeholders and finalizing the document. And we expect that by June next year, this national green taxonomy for Pakistan would be circulated, hopefully. And this is going to pave way for the market to be sure that they're investing in sustainable activities. So this is from the policy environment side. I'm taking a bit of time, but let me just add on that other than the regulatory support that State Bank is giving, we have dedicated credit lines that support the sustainable development of the country. Number one, that was, why I'm saying it number one, because it was a real success story, the renewable energy scheme, right, from sustainability perspective. Though the scheme has ended in June this year, but it really prepared the market towards sustainable investments. It helped build capacity of the banking industry to think on the lines of sustainable investments. And even once we have pulled this scheme out, still the banks have their own products on renewable energy in place. So this really turned out really well, and over 4,500 projects were financed under this scheme. Then we have a scheme for women entrepreneurs. We have a scheme for persons with disability, right? There is concessional financing schemes. We have schemes for SMEs as well. So these are the dedicated credit lines that SPP is offering in terms of providing concessional financing. The third aspect of my intervention would be about the capacity building. Number one being the National Financial Literacy Program that we are part of. and it has two components. One program is specially customized to cater the youth, and then the other one is for the adults. So as part of the overall financial literacy program, we are empowering the adults, the youth, to get into the formal framework of financial system to increase financial inclusion. Then we are also building capacity on ESRM, and we are running a lot of programs for the banking industry, and we plan to run more programs for SME sector, for industries, and now I'm going to add philanthropic organizations as well. So in academia, we've already done a lot of courses with them. In academia, we have done that. For banking industry, we have done a lot of programs there for capacity building on sustainable finance and ESRM implementation. So these were the three points that I wanted to make. They are the initiatives of the State Bank, that this is how we're going to support this cause together. Thank you.
Wow, great. So there's a huge amount of work that you're doing, which is, I think, really, really encouraging to see in terms of how you're mobilizing a financial institution to support some of the most vulnerable communities and address some of these critical challenges. I mean, it reminds me of your work. We last year, as part of our work with G20, produce a task force specifically focusing on women-led businesses across Asia Pacific. And one of the key recommendations we made was the need for gender disaggregated data and the need for ensuring that financial institutions can provide concessional finance for women-led businesses. And both of these things you're already doing. So it's really, really, really interesting and encouraging to hear. And also just the work around tech and innovation and how financial institutions can support technology, which I think can play a critical role in addressing particularly climate change, climate adaptation. And AVPN recently closed a fund with Google, a philanthropic fund with Google as the key, Google.org as the key sponsor, which made grants to organizations that were utilizing technology to support a variety of sustainability challenges across the region. I can perhaps turn now to Mr. Saeed Saim, who's the chief economist at the Bank of Punjab. Be great to hear your reflections from another financial institution, the work you're doing in Punjab around promoting impact amongst some of the communities at risk in that state.
So thank you, and let me start by congratulating SDPI, another fantastic event this year. And we're very proud to be partners. And let me also welcome you and the AVPN network to Pakistan. It would be great that while you're here in Islamabad, maybe you could take time out and come and meet our management. I think we'll be very interested in listening to some of the success stories that you're telling about. Let me be very concise. We've had a very good discussion so far. The corporate entities in Pakistan are doing really well. So last year, total profits of the 100 biggest companies were about 1.5 trillion rupees, which is about 2% of GDP. So they're doing very well financially, and they play a major part as far as the community and sustainable practices and impact investing is concerned. But what we see is most of these activities are done on a standalone basis. So some are event driven, like we saw the floods in 2022. So that was something which everybody contributed towards in their own small way. From our bank perspective, we basically adopted 2 villages in Sindh, and we basically helped like 150 households rebuild their housing and their livelihoods. So that's what we see. So you're absolutely right. I mean, it has to be a collaborative thing. Each company, each institution working on their own. I don't think the impact is very significant. So, you know, like, and I don't know, I don't think most of these interventions are very sustainable in the medium to long term. So it would be good to have more collaboration amongst all players. Uh, what we really like are the public-private partnership initiatives. I think those are areas where we've seen a lot of success. So whether it is in ESG, environmental investments, there we see, you know, good policy. State Bank came up with some facilities. The banks were able to roll it out very quickly. And it's really taken off, and it's become such a success that it's become a headache for the government. They're actually thinking of rolling it back because there's too much adoption of solar technology. So that's what we think really works. If I were to look at success, I would probably look towards the Arkan network. The interventions they've done over the last 3-4 decades is absolutely incredible. And that really is probably a model that has worked here, can be scaled up. And, you know, we've seen that there is ownership from the communities. So it's not driven by external agencies or, you know, what the chief minister wants to deliver or what the prime minister's vision is. They know what their needs are. They are able to effectively develop strategies how to address those gaps and get things done. And I think that's an area where I think we could all learn from. So if I were to talk about my own institution, the Bank of Punjab, we are one of the biggest public sector banks in Pakistan. And, you know, we take part in a lot of these social impact investing. So 60% of our budget goes towards the education and health related activities. And we partner with some of the top hospitals, top academic institutions in Pakistan. And the idea is to really assist, you know, help them and make sure that they're able to provide services to the community. 15% of our investing is towards, you know, environmental, sustainable practices. So we talked about we talked about renewables. We've also launched this new activity where we are rolling out electric vehicles in Lahore, given the smog situation, which is pretty bad. Yeah. So we've tried to deal with that problem through initiating this thing. So we're trying to bring in electric vehicles, which will hopefully lead to reduction in smog. Financial inclusion is a big part of our agenda. We are spending a lot of money working with especially the rural communities, where we see that there is less banking penetration. They don't really have access to banking services. So that's an area where we are working very, very extensively. And one of the initiatives we've launched recently, it's called the Kisan card, the farmer's card. More than 67% of the offtake for these facilities are by first-time people. So these are farmers with very small land holding, less than 5 acres, and these are people who have not had access to the banking services before. So that's about 265,000 households that were given credit this year, out of which 75% are all female. So interestingly, what we found is that a lot of the work done in the rural communities, especially farming, is done by women. So they are the ones that we've targeted, and we've seen some really good pickup in demand from that side. We are also working with some of the international development partners. So the French government has partnered with our bank to launch a facility through which we will provide project funding to a lot of the corporates, and this is for climate finance, so sustainability practices. So we are the first bank where we are partnering with, and similarly we're working with ADB to launch a facility specific to women SMEs. So they will provide some risk sharing to us, and we will roll out these loans targeted specifically at women and SMEs. But so I really like the discussion we've had, and I think we tend to agree that it has to be a collaborative effort. Any institution working on its own will only create limited impact. And it'd be fantastic to see what outcomes we can come out with in today's discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think what's striking from our interventions this morning, particularly from our two representatives from financial institutions, is how they're using the full power of that institution, both from the core business, but also from the philanthropy, and how those are working much more in tandem with each other. We also at ADPN are really looking at how we can utilize the financial institutions to support climate adaptation. And one way we're doing that is through an instrument that we're developing with ADB as well, where we're raising philanthropic capital, which plays a role as de-risking through providing guarantees or reducing interest rates that then incentivize financial institutions to on-lend to businesses, women-led businesses, to support with their climate adaptation investments, particularly around sort of investing in the technologies that can help them to ward off the negative impacts of climate change. So there's really interesting ways that philanthropic capital can be used to really leverage more commercial capital and investment as well. So I'm conscious of time. We've got about 30 minutes left for our conversation this afternoon. I'm going to ask in a moment one more question to each of our panelists here. After that, I'm going to invite some questions from the floor as well, if we have some time. So please do have a think about any questions or comments you may have, and I'll come to you after the next round of interventions from the panelists. And before I invite Mr. Saeed Ashraf for some final reflections.
That before you open the floor for questions, let me speak so that if there are any questions for me as well, so I can respond to them.
Perfect, great idea. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to then kick off with our next round of questions now, and I'm going to come back to Senator Roshan for a question to go a little bit more deeper into, sorry, Mr. Saeed, would you like to speak now or after our next round of questions?
It's up to you.
After, we'll do it after, then we have one more round, and then it'll be great to hear your reflections once we've heard a full comprehensive summary from our panelists. So Senator Roshan, perhaps I can come to you then. And I'd love to go a bit more deeper into the question around how philanthropy can really serve some of these underserved regions and strengthening governance that could support vulnerable communities. Perhaps some thoughts on the role that philanthropic capital can play in that context.
Listening to all the panelists, very impressive, really, what everybody is doing. But again, I would say, I do agree on their own, everybody is doing. But there is no networking. Nobody knows what everybody is doing. And besides that, like you said about agriculture, yes, it's very, and I also wanted to know about agriculture. The other thing what I feel is when we give out, whatever we give out to people, there is no follow-up. When there is no follow-up or no sustainability, just giving away, and then next year we come to the same solution, so we come to the same again, round and round. And so follow-up, I feel, is very, very important. And then like NGOs are working with INGOs, NGOs, government, they all are working. So actually, when NGOs are also working in grassroots level, I've seen, but the government doesn't know about that. When the government is working, NGOs doesn't know about it. So what happens, like in the flood time or COVID time, lot of help was given. like people came out. Our people are very generous, very, very frankly speaking. But what was the result? When you go again to the same people and ask them, they would say they got nothing. So I feel two things: sustainability, follow up. These two are very, very essential, because when we give out money for anything, we should see to it, okay, and we should follow it. It's not just giving out money and not following it. So there is no sense. I feel then how can we bring improvement? We'll never be able to improve. Everywhere I feel follow-up is very important. That is what I feel about.
Okay, thank you. And I think I might interpret that also as really measuring the impact, following up to understand whether or not you've actually had any impact with the projects or resources you have been deploying.
The impact about it,
Yeah.
giving things, what impact was there? After following, you come to know about the impact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we don't come to know about the impact. What it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Great. So, Kamala, can I come to you now? So, in your first intervention, we heard about this strategic philanthropic model that you deploy. But I also am aware of some of the more innovative financing instruments that you have been experimenting with in parts of South Asia, particularly this gender bond, and any other instruments that you might want to share with us. It'd be great to hear how you're really using philanthropy in some of these more innovative ways.
Thank you, Tristan. This is my opportunity to show off some of the work that we've done in India. So I think British Asian Trust, like I said, is very strong and very keen to build an outcomes focus and have an outcomes lens, and to be able to build incentives, financial incentives into achieving outcomes. Some of the work that we've done around that has been in India, and we've done 3 impact bonds there, what are called development impact bonds. In a very simplistic way, and I'm not a financial person, I come very hardcore from the NGO sector, so excuse me if my language is all wrong, but essentially how an impact bond works is that your traditional grant pays for certain activities which then lead to outcomes. So that's kind of, you pay upfront, you agree that this is how much it will cost to do some vocational training or do some certification courses, etc. And the assumption is that the jobs will be gotten at the end of it. But what an impact bond does is it tries and identifies that, okay, to get a job, what is the actual cost? So there is a lot of dropout at multiple layers. You have multiple levels of flexibility in the provider to actually meet that outcome. And once you define that, okay, how much does it cost to get somebody into a job, you can then bring in risk investors who can then take a risk on ensuring that those outcomes are met. An outcome funder then comes in and will pay once those results are met. So it is based on guaranteed outcomes. So once those outcomes are met, 500 women are in jobs, that's when the outcome funder pays back to the risk investor. The risk investor makes a little bit money for having carried that risk, but ultimately in the end, you're paying for those outcomes that have been achieved. So that's in a very simplistic way. Like I said, I'm not from a financial background, so but impact bonds really we have seen them work in India. They have been extremely successful. We have done 3. We did one called the Quality Education Impact Bond, which was QEI. And interestingly, that was looking at education outcomes, and it got set up just before COVID. When COVID hit, schools in India shut down. But because of this mechanism, what we found, it was quite interesting, was that despite schools being closed, because the service providers had outcomes focus that these kids had to learn, they very quickly pivoted to online teaching, whereas a lot of the other schools just shut down. Whereas in the ones who were part of the program, are part of the DIB, they actually pivoted very quickly and tried to solve the problem without being stuck on the fact that we now don't have infrastructure to actually deliver. So that flexibility is what was really successful. We also had one in skilling. We have one that's up and running with the Government of India, the Skills Impact Bond. And we, again, that's focused on getting people into jobs, and that has a very strong gender focus as well. And the other one that we're doing is one of the largest in education, which is LiftEd, which is, again, looking at educational outcomes with the Government of India. So that's where we are. We are currently designing Impact Bond for Pakistan, and that is in the area of skills and jobs. Our ambition for the piece that we're designing is to get 30,000 people into jobs. And we're currently partnering with Punjab Skills Development Fund, which many of you are probably familiar with, an extremely, excellent organization, and we're designing with them. And we're looking to get 30,000 people into jobs in high growth areas of work. So, growing where there's a growing demand for those skills, we're looking to meet those demands through this kind of impact bond approach. So that's it.
I think what's so interesting about this approach is that it's not actually about more money. It's about changing the way in which the resources are deployed, changing your attitude and approach to risk and incentives to enable innovation to flourish. And actually, that's about really empowering communities ultimately. So it's really interesting that a financial model that you might think, why are we using this when we're trying to solve an issue around education, can actually be more effective at really empowering these communities.
So it is a financial model, Tristan, but it's also an impact tool.
Yeah.
I think it's very much an impact tool because it is very evidence-based, and it uses that evidence to create impact. So I think that's where.
Yeah, exactly. Great. I'm going to come to Usma again for our final question for you, which is really around the work that you're doing with diaspora communities and online spaces that's about mobilizing capital to support issues and that are here in Pakistan. It'd be great to hear more about that work.
Yeah, sure. As I earlier shared that it is part of State Bank's vision to be technologically advanced and to bring in more innovations in the financial sector. In the online space, we have connected the Pakistani communities, and we have provided platforms where they can channelize their zakat donation, their charity money to the country for their contributions in terms of philanthropy. So I'll just start off with one of the intervention that was not basically online, but it started off back in 2009 when Pakistan Remittance Initiative was basically formed in collaboration with State Bank, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Overseas Pakistanis, where Pakistan Remittance Initiative, PRI, actually engages the Pakistani community abroad along with the local partners to create awareness and to bring them into the formal system, basically. So this is what was happening physically, but definitely after digitalization and with the time, we brought in some innovative ideas to connect a Pakistani community for the social causes. In 2020, we bought in this product, launched a Roshan digital account that was particularly focused for the diaspora members. And through, and very interestingly, as already one of the panelists shared, that it is part of the Islamic teachings, or it's a norm that in Pakistan we donate, and in terms of zakat as well. So just to share the success of what Roshan digital account actually did in connecting was that just during the month of Ramadan, the highest that we got through a Roshan digital account was 250 million rupees just during the month of Ramadan. That was the highest. That's that the figure that I have, right? Then within this Roshan digital account, we integrated Samaji Khidmat, Roshan Samaji Khidmat. This is the name of one of the tabs that are integrated in the Roshan digital account, where we have partnered with the charity organizations, and the person sitting outside Pakistan is able to donate directly to the charity organization. So that the name of that thing is Roshan Samaji Khidmat. So this is how we have connected, and the figures that I have here is 1.95 billion have been disbursed under Roshan Samaji Khidmat. This is how we're connecting. Then this was the product exclusively for the diaspora community. Where then maybe the people here would be familiar with the Rast intervention that we've made, that through a mobile number, we get connected, we have a Rast ID. This is how domestically we're getting used to of, making person to person transactions and all, even person to merchant transactions. So this was for domestic, that was a domestic intervention that we did. And domestically, the charity money was channelized through this somehow. And recently, we have launched very recently, that is in August.
I'm going to jump in if I may, because I would love to hear from Mr. Saeed, from Mr. Saeed Ashraf, just some reflections, then we can come back to finish off afterwards. If that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Just be great to hear, because I understand he must head off for a meeting shortly.
Okay.
So it'd be great to hear some reflections before we close our meeting today. So Mr. Saeed Ashraf, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tristan. First of all, it's been a real pleasure listening to the esteemed panelists and their views about the topic and also what they are doing in their respective domains. Before, going to my remarks as I was told, let me clarify, try to clarify one or two things. As we understand from the very topic for this session, which is, of course, we find very useful and intriguing, co-creating philanthropic impact. So I'd just like to share my thoughts and understanding about the topic and what were we expecting, what would be the key focus of discussion here. Of course, as we all know, philanthropy in any form, it is generally dealt with by the civil society organizations. And of course, we use multiple terms for these organizations: NGOs, CSOs, NPOs. So basically, I was expecting that we'll just be talking about that very space that we define as civil society in which these organizations operate and collect and funnel philanthropy in any form. But of course, these organizations operate within certain policy framework in which role of various relevant government organizations, banks, for instance, State Bank of Pakistan, Bank of Punjab, they would facilitate them in their endeavors. So just wanted to have this clarity so that, and I'll be in my remarks talking about the broader issues, which ma'am also hinted at, the broader issues that impact the working of NGO sector, if we call it so. So just wanted to clarify this. And also, let me also share with you that since I'm representing the Ministry of Economic Affairs or Economic Affairs Division, so what is our specific role in all this? I'll highlight that as well. But generally speaking, Economic Affairs Division is responsible for programming of all foreign economic assistance or economic assistance that we receive, maybe from the multilateral development banks or bilateral development partners. So that is our primary role. And then we, of course, by programming, we mean that we sort of identify with them the development pipeline or pipeline projects with them for next 2 to 3 years. And within EAD, of course, we have various wings which deal with various multilaterals or bilaterals. For instance, I specifically deal with the World Bank portfolio and the Asian Development Bank portfolio, and of course, few bilaterals as well, including Japan. So these were few of the thoughts which I just thought to share with you. So first of all, again, I appreciate AVPN and SDPI for organizing this very important session, which I thought aims to explore various approaches for creating a composite and visible impact of philanthropic efforts in Pakistan. The role and contribution of philanthropic organizations towards addressing socio-economic challenges and complementing government's efforts for sustainable development is growing fast, as we all know. However, despite this fast evolving transition in the role of philanthropic organizations, it is difficult to measure the cumulative scale and impact of their contributions for the aforementioned purposes, which, ma'am, you also highlighted. The quest for co-creating the philanthropic impact must start with exploring the peculiar conditions and policy environment in which the philanthropic organizations, NPOs, NGOs, operate and collaborate with other key stakeholders, such as local communities, various donor organizations, and relevant government entities. The growing role of philanthropy across Asia emphasizes intersectoral collaboration with government bodies, NGOs, local communities, and to promote social and environmental resilience. Active and vibrant civil society manifested in the form of philanthropic organizations, NGOs, NPOs play a vital role in fostering inclusive social economic development and bridging service delivery gaps. NGO sector in Pakistan has an immense potential to complement the state's development agenda and address key challenges such as gender inequality, climate vulnerability, and poverty. NPOs are already making tremendous contributions to the education and health sectors with significant support of the Pakistani diaspora. However, certain factors impede full realization of this immense potential of the philanthropic organizations and creating a unified and measurable impact. In Pakistan, these factors or barriers include fragmentation of laws for registration of NGOs with different reporting requirements, absence of a centralized system for registration of NGOs in Pakistan, lack of centralized database of active NGOs working in various sectors, and peculiar social and security environment in certain geographical areas. In addition to the issues that I highlighted, certain endogenous issues also limit NGOs' ability to realize their potential in Pakistan. It is generally perceived that most of the NGOs lack real commitment to the causes they promote and lack capacity to perform. In certain cases, NGOs are not able to sustain their activities beyond the donor funding cycle. Philanthropic organizations, like other institutions, need support to build their capacity to meaningfully contribute to socio-economic development. It is therefore imperative to address the fragmented registration and regulatory governance regime for NGOs, foster collaboration of philanthropic organizations with other key stakeholders, and devise mechanisms for building institutional capacity of the NGOs and NPOs. I would now briefly talk about broader mandate of the Economic Affairs Division, as I just briefly touched previously, and its role in the registration of local NGOs receiving foreign funding. In the context of its mandate of assessing of requirements and programming of external economic assistance from foreign governments and organizations, EAD devised a policy in 2013, which was subsequently updated in 2022 to facilitate the flow of foreign funding received by NGOs and NPOs. The purpose of this policy is to keep track of the foreign assistance received by local NGOs and to avoid overlap of their activities. Under this policy, EAD during a short period approved over 1,400 NGO applications who will be receiving foreign funding amounting to over $1 billion. However, presently implementation of the policy is on hold due to a court order. EAD is appreciative of the issues faced by the NGOs during this legal void in NGO registration for receiving foreign funding and is trying to address it at the earliest. A cabinet committee headed by the federal law minister has been notified to explore various legal avenues in this regard. So I would just conclude by again appreciating AVPN and STPI for organizing this dialogue, for fostering role of the philanthropic and non-profit organizations in sustainable development, and explore approaches for creating a measurable impact of philanthropic efforts. And I would request STPI to if possible, document the recommendations shared by our esteemed panelists that may be shared with relevant entities, of course, including EAD, to benefit from the advice of the esteemed panelists and to try to further improve the systems and policy frameworks that we are dealing with. Thank you so very much.
Okay. Joint Secretary, Mr. Saeed Ashraf, thank you so much for your really encouraging comments and such a insightful description of the relationship between the NGO or civil society and the role of government. And it's really interesting to hear your reflections on issues around the fragmentation around laws, the absence of this centralized database, and okay. And certainly we will be working to collect all of the information and insights from the session today and share that with you in due course. I think we want to take a photograph, Abdullah, and then
Off the panel,
okay.
in presence of the secretary.
Okay. If we can just do that first before we conclude our session today.
Foreign aid money is going to come?
So we're just going to have a quick photograph. Apologies for that. And then we're going to conclude the session today.
मैं आपको अर्ज करता हूं मैम
पीछे कर देते हैं so that ठीक
Not just me.